Welcome to the MMHP in the 989, channeling all styles and eras of Michigan music history. Recorded live inside the Rock Legends Hall of Fame in Bay City, Michigan. Featuring Dr. J, Sir Fred, Mr. Mike, and your host, Scott Baker.
Welcome back to part 2 with Benny Speer of Benny and the Jets. And we want to thank him once again for making the trek to the Michigan Rock Legends Hall of Fame in Bay City to do this nice long episode. Here in part 2, he's going to cover the ground of backing bands such as Bo Diddley, Freddie Boom Boom Cannon, his single Dumb Girls, which he actually performs for us, and he does a couple live songs, talks a little bit about Question Mark of the Mysterians, Eddie Money, Ronnie Spector, stolen band equipment, and a crazy phone call from David Bowie when he was a kid. That's just tops everything off. So dig in here, part 2 with Mr. Benny Speer of Benny and the Jets, a true Michigan rock legend telling his story.
Now, did you ever get a situation where you played behind one of the big acts? That, in other words, you played the instruments behind somebody?
Well, yeah, we did that for a long time. As well, this famous agent we had, Jerry Pallo, he would work with a lot of the 60s stars. And a lot of the 60s stars didn't have bands. They would do an appearance somewhere, and they would usually hire a local backup band to back those up. And so the first one we were traveling with Chubby Checker a lot, doing a lot of Chubby Checker shows, and we would overlap some of those shows with Freddie Boom Boom Cannon. And Freddie as well did a lot of working with this Jerry Pallo, and so it was a kind of a natural connection. We did nationwide a lot of shows as Freddie's backup band. Often we would play a set first as an opening act and then come on as Freddie's backup band as well.
Yeah, when he played in Bay City, he played at Band Canyon. He opened our big teen club here, and he used actually a local band as his backing group.
Much easier, much cheaper, much more economical. Right. Come into town and grab a band.
But maybe not as good as you guys probably
also
were.
Played at the Fortress.
Oh, really?
Bay City and Saginaw.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Paul Barrera owned the club at the time. And it had to be in the 75, 76 when I had my store here.
Yeah. Did he play guitar? Because Freddie Cannon...
I didn't go.
Freddie Cannon was a pretty good guitar player.
Yeah, he can play guitar. He normally would just sing, but occasionally, if need be, he would play guitar. I'd like to say that Freddie's 88 years old, still alive and well, and he's promoting a new record. So and it's a good record. It's not a bad record too. Somewhere I'll get to the Michigan Rock and Roll Legends Facebook page, and I'll leave a connection for Freddie's record or something.
Yeah, definitely do that. It was interesting, since you were around Ann Arbor quite a bit, you had a connection with Madonna when she was there, right? Going to the University of Michigan?
Yes, yeah.
You can kind of tell, of course, Bay City, Madonna's birthplace, so we're always interested in a Madonna story.
Yeah, Madonna, when you talk about Elvis Presley and Chubby, she's on the list of great worldwide international stars, Madonna. And I think the story was that we had played at the Second Chance, was a big bar in Ann Arbor, and a lot of the big stars would go through there. And she, as a student, she wasn't a big star yet, came and saw us play there. But even a bigger Madonna sighting was years later. We were playing at a big car show at the Dearborn Hyatt Regency. It was out on the grounds of the Dearborn Hyatt Regency, which is right across from the Ford Motor World headquarters. And there was 1,000 classic cars there and a band and 1,000 people. And we're playing along. Benny and Jets playing Go Johnny Go down in Louisiana. And I walked over to the bass player and leaned over in his ear. I said, "That's Sean Penn standing there." And he goes, "What would Sean Penn be doing standing here in Dearborn?" And I said, "I don't know, but the guy's either Sean Penn or a look-alike, a wannabe." And so we go ahead and finish and keep playing. And pretty soon a helicopter lands. And out the door walks Madonna and Sean Penn right across our stage almost to get in the helicopter and takes off. He goes, "Well, I guess you're right. I guess that was Sean Penn."
Well, that must have been 1987 when she had that concert at the Pontiac Silverdome.
Yes.
And those are the pictures that we have
Right here.
you know, in the Hall of Fame that were taken by Dick Van Ostrand of the Bay City Times.
So wow,
there we go. What a
small
connection.
world.
Yeah.
Every little interconnection change. We're not far from School Kid Records, and we were not far from Madonna, and she got on a helicopter after her gig at the Pontiac Silverdome.
Yeah.
And I think my daughter, who was the teenager, the right age for that, was at that concert for Madonna. Not at my concert, but she was the night before at the Madonna concert.
Well, yeah.
I have
I'm
the
sure.
book by her roommate,
Oh, yeah.
Al Hill's wife. Can't think of her name right now, but she wrote a book about Madonna was her roommate.
Yeah. Isn't it funny how certain stars just become collectible? We can talk about Chubby Checkers and we talked about Cub Coda Brownsville Station, but you pop into a name like Madonna, and she there's like Madonna fan clubs that every book, everything she touched, everything she did becomes a real collectible, real story. That I guess that's just the magic of rock and roll. Some people have that.
Well, right. I mean, she's reached the iconic stage. Like Elvis,
Right.
or the Beatles, or the Rolling Stones.
Right.
That they're icons. Yeah, that's taking it to a new. Taylor Swift probably is. I think has achieved that.
Yes.
as well.
Although when I see Taylor Swift standing next to Mick Jagger, she's still looking at Mick Jagger. I think the person with the most charisma, you'd be looking at that person. But so it's hard to stand on the stage next to Mick Jagger.
Yeah. You didn't do that many 45s, correct?
Correct.
But you did issue one that I think has been kind of notorious over the years, right?
Yes.
With the very, what would we say?
Controversial.
Controversial, definitely apolitical. It would be not politically correct. Dumb Girls.
Right.
Okay, can you tell us the story of that 45?
Boy, I wish I had a really great story on that. It just was one of those things that popped up. I think the Rolling Stones were doing a song called "Some Girls,"
right?
And we did "Dumb Girls."
Well, and then they had "Stupid Girl." On an earlier album. Yeah,
it was just kind of one of those that era that became magic. Cub Coda, who we didn't plan on mentioning this many times, but Cub Coda wrote a record review of our record, Dumb Girls, and he said, this really should have been Benny and the Jets' ticket to worldwide fame and fortune and recording success, because it was a pretty good record. Controversial side, there was really good music and recording of it. It was a pretty good record. I could have said this was Aerosmith or this was some big band, and you would have listened twice. Whoa, interesting. It didn't sound like a little band in the garage. It was a pretty good sound, pretty good record, and it got some good attention. It got played on national radio a lot of times as bumper music. Howard Stern would play going in and out of a commercial. I really, 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 really like Dumb Girls. I really like Dumb Girls. And the guitar go, and it was a really catchy song. And we talked about commercials and movie. It did make a couple of commercials as well.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was.
So do you still play that? I know you play mostly acoustic now, right?
In my old age, I've become age appropriate. I used to have really long hair and a really long beard. In fact, back there in the 80s.
That's what I was.
Yeah, and back in the 80s, I won the Wall Clipper Best Beard in America contest. And I won a trip around the world carrying the Wall Clippers and waving at people. Say, hey, that's the guy with the best beard. So I went around the world on the Queen Mary 2. It was quite a prize, quite an event. A lot of fun. But as I've gotten older, I've become more age appropriate. My hair is trimmed, my beard is trimmed. Instead of carrying a U-Haul truck full of equipment, I can walk in with a guitar and just strum, and it seems to work well. And to answer the question about Dumb Girls, I have not played that song in a long time for no good reason.
Well, I know you've brought your guitar here tonight. Can we talk you into playing a little bit of it, or?
I could. Well, let me grab the guitar, and I'll just go like this. Really, 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 really like dumb girls. Sounds like Chuck Berry. Really, 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 really like dumb girls. I like them simple. I like them sexy. I like them dumb. So it was an easy song. I thought about when I brought the guitar down, and I have a little ukulele of a guitar. This is a fun little guitar. This is a carbon fiber guitar. It's almost a toy guitar, but it's fun for just lugging around the car and sitting by the campfire and strumming the guitar.
But you don't play that when you play a gig then?
Usually not. Although when I do my Facebook Live, I often have this sitting on the couch. There is a Facebook, Benny Jets Detroit Facebook, and every Tuesday at 10 o'clock, every Thursday at 10 o'clock, I bring out the guitar and sing a song just almost for practice, just to keep your fingers nimble and keep doing things. And one of the songs I play every once in a while, pulling out a hat, talking about original songs, which is on the cassette tape that you have in your hand. We were touring with Bo Diddley as Bo Diddley's backup band. And there's some really great YouTubes out there of Benny and the Jets with as Bo Diddley's band in Las Vegas.
That's what Ross Elko told us, that same story.
Right, Ross was on that recording with us. He was the drummer on that show. And of course, but we played from Seattle to Miami, from Boston to Arizona, back and forth with Bo Diddley as his band. And so we were very influenced by Bo Diddley. And September 12th, 1980, yours truly was on the front page of the Detroit News. All our band equipment was in our van and got stolen. And Benny, being the hothead he was in the 1980s, I came out with a gun and tried to shoot the guys that were stealing our stuff. And I got arrested because you're not supposed to shoot people and you're not supposed to shoot guns off in the city. And so it was kind of a comical comedy of errors. And so it made the front page, musician reverse justice or something like that. And in fact, Bill Bonds, the famous Detroit News, Channel 7 News broadcaster, called me 6 o'clock in the morning and says, Benny, we want you to be on our news program. I go, you call me at 6 o'clock in the morning to tell me that? He says, well, we want an exclusive story. I go, exclusive story about what? He says, well, obviously you haven't seen the newspaper yet. So he says, go get a newspaper and call me back. So I walk out of my little apartment down to the corner store, which wasn't even open at 6 in the morning. But back then they used to have newspapers and they would pile them up out in front of the store. Right. So I took a newspaper and here I am on the front page of the Detroit News. And I left a quarter there because I was really afraid. My luck, I'll get arrested for stealing a newspaper. And I went home and read, and it said, Benny's equipment got stolen, and he got arrested, and blah, blah, blah. So it was the front page of the Detroit News, and Bo Diddley, who we were traveling with, in fact, we needed the equipment because we had to leave that day for Bo Diddley. Says, Benny, you got to write a song about it. So we went. That's kind of that Bo Diddley beat, right? And Bo Diddley was always about the beat. This old face been around the world. This old face seen all kinds of girls. Got me a story to tell. Got me some songs to sell. And this old face seen the inside of a jail. And this old face seen the judge set bail. Front page of a Detroit News. And this old face gonna sing the blues. This old face seen a whole lot of years. This old face seen a whole lot of tears. But I kept my head up. I want to tell you, I'll never give up. And this old face seen the inside of a jail. And this old face seen the judge set bail. Front page of a Detroit News. And this old face gonna sing the blues. And this old face seen the inside of a jail. And this old face seen the judge set bail. Front page of a Detroit news. And this old face gonna sing the blues. Oh,
yeah.
Kind of a life story. And if you listen close, I'm hoping you could hear notes of Bo Diddley and some Cub Coda kind of mixed into that.
Oh, yeah.
True story of this old face.
Did they catch the culprit?
Oh, yes, they did. They caught him.
And you got your equipment back.
Boy, it's a heavy story. We did get the equipment back, and we did get to our show with Bo Diddley, but not because of the police, because I was chasing them down and shooting at them. But we did get it back, and here, many years later, we're no worse the wear.
Well, that's great. Yeah. Cool
And
story.
in fact, the guitar case that's in the picture of Benny and the Jets band on the wall of the Michigan Rock and Roll Legends Hall of Fame here in Bay City is the guitar case that got stolen in
man.
that song, in that van back in the 1980s.
Wow. You know, one thing we haven't talked about are the guys that you played with over the years. Maybe you could kind of just go through who were the Jets that backed you up all those years.
Yeah, the Jets, you know, and there was a few Jets. You know, when you look at a band that's been together since the 1970s, and like I said, in 1980 we did 100,000 miles. That's really hard on a person's body and life and family to do that. So we would burn through a few. The original Benny and the Jets band was J.P. Morgan was our bass player from Hitchin, Hertfordshire, England. And he added a certain. He was a few years older than me. I was the kid still, and he was a few years older. So he added a certain amount of. I don't know what my word would be, but gravity. He added something to it, and then we had a drummer named Wild Bill who had been a touring band of another one of these touring oldies bands. So he was used to the traveling, and those guys did hundreds of thousands of miles and eventually timed out, aged out, and we would slowly replace guys as the years went through. But they were the original guys.
Wow.
And you have
Okay.
their picture on the wall in there.
All right, that is the original
Yes.
group. Yeah, that's really cool. That's a great shot.
Yeah.
Another thing that we didn't touch on was your band's participation in something called the Autorama. And maybe you could kind of explain what is the Autorama and how you got involved in it. Was that a Jerry Patlow thing too?
The world famous Autorama, where cars, racing, nitromethane, fuel injected funny cars, Autoramas. There was a time, I believe there was 150 auto shows, Autoramas, across the country. They would go to all the big arenas, coast to coast, and often they would tie in bands at these shows. You got all these classic cars, hot rods, race cars, and they would like to have music along with it. At Cobo Arena, when I was a little kid, I would go to the auto show and always see the bands. SRC would play there, Ted Nugent would play there, Bob Seger would play there, Cub Coda and the Brownsville station would play there. And so as I grew up and I got the offer to play at the Autorama, I got to play at Cobo Arena, the same stage that Bob Seger and Cub Coda and all those other bands. And to me, it was like a Ricky Nelson moment. I was the little kid with my chin on the stage watching Bob Seger or Cub Coda. And here now, I was on that same stage. And Benny and the Jets played 150 cities across the country as part of that Autorama traveling. And in fact, the show we talked about with Bo Diddley in Las Vegas was at the Las Vegas Convention Center Autorama there.
So how did that work? Did was that Jerry Patlow?
Yeah, our agent Jerry
And
Patlow.
so he had kind of set it up, and you would move from one auto show to the other.
Yeah, he would book he'd like to make the right matchup. Back in the era in that early 70s, Bob Seger was still a neighborhood band kind of, so he was happy to play at the Autorama. But as he grew in fame and fortune, they'd have to they'd find another generation of bands to come in there. And and we became in that 80s era, we became a real go-to band for the auto shows. And so they'd have an auto show in Detroit, then next week it'd be in Cleveland, next week it'd be in St. Louis, next week it'd be in Miami, and it was just like on the road again.
Yeah, and I imagine it was pretty lucrative.
Oh yeah, it was great. It was almost like being in the Beatles. It was you were touring all the biggest arenas, playing for sold out audiences, because an auto show would come to town and it'd be thousands upon thousands of people to see you. And who was it that told me this? It might have been Cub Coda that said they always like to play the big arenas, because even if you weren't the headline of the big arena, or even if you were part of another show like the auto show, people say, "Oh, I remember seeing Brownsville Station at Cobo Arena." They don't say it was at the auto show or opening for somebody else or on a bill with 6 other bands. Oh yeah, I saw them at Cobo Arena that time. So there's people in St. Louis that said, "Oh, I saw Benny and the Jets at the arena," or people in Miami, or people in Las Vegas or Seattle, wherever that Autorama went to.
Outside of the Autorama, or even including it, what was some of the biggest shows you've played, and where?
Boy, oh boy, oh boy. A lot of those Autoramas were great, and I think I would equate a lot of it just to the magic involved. So even going way back to that first show at the Stork Club, opening for Chubby Checker, we were kids and we were scared, and it was a big sold out concert of people screaming, just like you were watching an old Beatles concert or something. And so those magic moments in history, that one there, to be able to do the opening one for Ricky Nelson, when we played in Pasadena, California, and I always thought that was a magic thing, because growing up in Detroit, we would hear the Beach Boys and fun, and you think of Surfer Girls, and to say, here we are playing in Pasadena.
Little old lady from Pasadena.
Yeah, little old lady. And we were there right on that street, and to hear our little guys from Plymouth, Michigan, all the way out to California, or to Miami Beach, or when we'd see when we'd get to play a place that I knew someone big played. We played the International Hilton in Las Vegas with Freddie Cannon and Bo Diddley and Benny and the Jets. And we sat in the dressing room where Elvis sat. There's even a plaque in that dressing room that says, "This is where Elvis sat." And I said, I'm sitting in the same chair, in front of the same mirror, getting ready to go on the same stage that Elvis Presley, the very first concert I ever went to, also on that stage. So there was a lot of great moments. And Benny and the Jets, it's just hard to explain in our podcast how many moments there was like that. We were, when you hear rock stars say they were extremely lucky, we were beyond extremely lucky in walking the path of those other stars.
Did you come up to Frankenmuth or Bay City for any of those car shows over the years?
Lots of
you
car
were in
shows.
town a lot here.
Yeah, we played. It seems like yesterday, but I guess it had to be more than 10 years ago. We played downtown Frankenmuth at where they closed the street off. Thousands of people, lots of great cars, and these little guys came up to us and said, "Hi, we're a band." And we said, "Oh, nice. I got to try. The people are nice to me. I got to try being nice to them, right?" He goes, "We're playing in the Grange Hall right there on Main Street in Frankenmuth. Will you come see our setup?" And it was only a block away. I said, "Sure." So I walked down with these little guys, and they got a nice little band set up, drums, guitar amps, no people in there yet, because they were all the people on the cars. And this little band we kind of befriended, named Greta Van Fleet, who was from Frankenmuth.
Frankenmuth, yeah.
So we got to meet them when they were kids.
Yeah, Lynn and I saw them at that very same Grange Hall.
Oh, wow.
Because a friend of ours is the uncle of the drummer of Greta Van Fleet. So, yeah, when we saw them at the Grange Hall, really nobody knew who they were, but they were playing Led Zeppelin pretty well.
Yeah, they had a magic about them. Yeah. And if you Google or if you search rock and roll, their name often comes up as this next generation of rock and roll.
Oh, yeah.
So many of the rock and roll stars now are 80 years old. It's hard to imagine going to a big dome stadium and seeing an 80-year-old guy singing and dancing. And unfortunately, if you were rock and rolling in the 70s, you're 70 or plus now.
You know it.
And so they need those new young guys to rock and roll. And Greta Van Fleet is kind of filling some of that void.
Oh, definitely. And in fact, that photo I showed you of Bob Seger that we took, the opening act for Bob Seger at the Dow Event Center for that concert was Greta Van Fleet. It was the first big show they did, where they're playing for,
that's
thousands
so
of people.
incredible.
And they really did well. I mean, you seen these young guys, they had all kinds of stage presence, and crowd was really into it, of course.
Hometown guys, yeah.
Yeah, they were hometown kids. And yeah, it was really neat to see that.
I'd like to think that maybe Bob Seger had something to do with that too, or at least gave it a stamp of approval to help that next generation come on.
Yeah, you never know.
Bob seems like that kind of guy.
But certainly, I would imagine he would have approval over the opening acts on. So yeah, it was wonderful to see that.
It's cool stuff. I remember 96 FM or Johnny Burke saying something about you guys on the air coming to the shows
for Frankenmuth.
Frankenmuth, yeah.
Yes.
Because I think he put those on. Yeah,
yeah, we loved them. Yeah. I mean, anytime you're in an area and there's a lot of people, it's just like built-in success. You don't have to worry if there's going to be a big crowd or not. There's a big crowd.
That's always a comfortable night when you know that's happening.
And for whatever reason, I guess maybe go right back to our guy Jerry Patlow in those auto shows. Benny and the Jets have always been auto connected. We had a 55 Chevy with red flames, and it said Benny and the Jets down the side, and we would take it around to a lot of shows or just cruise it around, and it added to the fame of the band and the connection with the car guys. Then when we did that 100,000 miles in 1980, we had that brand new van, and we painted Benny and the Jets down the side of it, kind of like the Monkees had on their car or something like that. And so we kind of always felt connected to
that's on your
cars.
Facebook too.
We put that picture on there because so many people will comment, didn't you have a van with your name on the side? I go, yeah, we did. And it had 100,000 miles on it.
That's cool. Man, what a connection to the whole history of rock and roll right there. Great stories. No, I want to go back before we keep on moving, but the whole Michigan theater thing with your dad. Did you ever get to play there before it closed?
We did not officially play there,
okay.
But we had access to the stage. And if you're a little kid and you're playing guitar, you're going to make some noise there.
Yeah, that's a huge parking lot now.
Yeah.
Or I don't know if it, but we parked there when we went to Comerica Park.
Yeah, supposedly part of the argument, when I said how the owners and the promoters battled on who should have the rights to do what and who should be allowed to do what, there was that whole time there was a little 20 spot car lot outside the Palace, and that guy was paying more rent than the Michigan Palace building was,
really?
and making more money probably than the building was. And so they decided, well, let's just convert this whole theater into a parking lot, because it's
beautiful.
There is a 30-story building attached to it,
right?
And so you could have parking for the offices and stuff, and avoid any of the craziness of the theater. So they started to build a parking lot, couple levels there, and then after they got, I think, two levels built, they found out the substructure was not strong enough to support the parking lot and the cars, so they stopped building it. So they tore the theater down and started investing in building a parking lot, and now can't even do that. Another interesting rock and roll moment, Eminem in his movie 8 Mile does a scene in that parking lot, which was the former theater, where he sings "You Better," and so the lore lives on. I'm sure Eminem probably went there to see bands when he was a kid, and so when he had a chance to include that in his 8 Mile movie, and there's a movie about Benny and the Jets as well called Nothing But the Music, and we did the trailer of the movie, which is on YouTube. Nothing But Music. It's about
it's a documentary, right?
About bands and musicians who never worked, or should we phrase it another way, who always worked, who never worked any job except music. When I was in high school, my buddies were working at McDonald's. I was playing guitar at the neighborhood bar. When my friends were getting married and having kids, they were working at Ford Motor Company. I was touring with Freddie Cannon or Bo Diddley or Chubby Checker. So they made a movie about a handful of musicians who did their entire life just as musicians. And we did the trailer for that movie in that structure, the parking lot of the former Michigan Palace. So that's on YouTube as well.
Yeah, I saw that. I remember you.
Yeah,
had
Benny
sent
and
me
the
a
Jets
message.
Band YouTube channel. So it sounds like a mouthful, but you got to type that whole thing in because there's so many Benny and the Jets songs. You have to say
Right.
Benny and the Jets Band YouTube channel, and it'll be one of the videos that pops up there.
Yeah.
Michigan Palace, great place, million stories.
And you said your dad. Did you go to all those shows, the Kiss show, and were you at every one of those ones you were
Well,
mentioning?
I'm sure there's some I didn't make, but
Yeah.
the majority I was there.
I bet. No, you said your dad, Russ Gibb, and someone else were booking.
Steve Glantz, right,
Okay.
famous promoter.
And then you were mentioned the theater in Detroit, the Olympia.
Olympia.
So did they compete
Arena.
somewhat?
Oh, yeah, that was the home of the Red Wings.
yeah,
Yeah,
Back
and that
in
was
the
some
day.
kind of competition for booking, right?
They called that what they called it the Red Barn or something. It was a
Yeah.
huge 17,000 seat arena, and that was winding down at the time too.
Winding down.
That was
okay.
old.
Because I remember, I think
We saw
Zeppelin
the
did
Stones
that.
there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I did too.
Stones, Zeppelin.
All the big bands, like I said, I saw
Yeah.
Elvis there, but the Beatles
Beatles
were
played
big
there,
famous
right.
thing for being there.
Yeah.
But the Stones, all the biggest of the biggest bands. But it was a barn of a brick building, a hockey rink that had echo, and it was not necessarily good seating or acoustics for a concert.
What I find interesting and what I wanted to correlate is coming as that's ending and you're coming along with Michigan Theater, your dad is. It sounds like the Michigan Theater stuck with U.S. bands, whereas Olympia had Genesis and all these English bands coming in. Did your dad bring in any English acts to Michigan Theater?
That's a
Well,
great
David Bowie played there,
Yeah,
right?
that's a great question, and with a lot of the Michigan Palace family of bands, I think it was not so much pre-planned as just organically what happened.
Oh.
So at the Olympia, when the Stones and the Beatles, we had the British invasion
Yeah,
happening.
yeah.
That was kind of organic. It was just happening. I don't think the guys doing the promotions there were specifically looking. They were just looking for
Well,
someone
it's
that could
just
fill
like the
the
Grandy,
seats.
the Who to the Grandy.
Right,
and,
right.
yeah.
I think they were looking for people that could fill the seats, and those bands were looking for places that they could play. And so with the Michigan Palace, same thing. They were looking for bands that could fit, that could play there.
Okay.
Yeah,
It's just
well, yeah,
interesting.
well, you figure like it though, and the Michigan Palace we're talking about like 73, right?
Correct.
And a lot of those
73,
bands
4,
like
5,
the Who,
6.
they're way too big
Right.
By then,
to
yeah.
play
Right.
at the Michigan
So they were
Palace.
looking for a new generation.
Right. You had to
of
have the right
Aerosmith,
band.
who was not known yet.
Yeah.
But on their way
but
to
would
become
still
a worldwide
fill
band.
the seats.
Right.
Yeah,
Well, and-
exactly.
I guess what clicks in my mind is I read early Genesis with Peter Gabriel on vocals, and they had to find a place after the Olympia in about the same size to come to Michigan. They started drawing an audience, and I'm wondering,
We would have been too small for that probably.
Okay.
My guess is they would have went to Cobo Hall at that time. 12,000 seats at Cobo
I'm
Hall.
just trying to remember the other venues,
Yeah,
but
there-
it's like I
was
wonder how that all
probably a
worked.
Well,
little-
Masonic too was playing. That was
4,000, yes.
yeah, that
So
was
that'd been too small
smaller
for them,
than
too.
smaller than
Masonic
Cobo.
did get a lot of good shows. Though.
Yeah.
Masonic was a
I
good
saw
place to
Bob
see
Marley
bands.
there.
It was, it was
Yeah, Crosby,
acoustically.
Stills, and Nash we saw there at the Masonic.
Cat Stevens, I saw there.
Yeah.
It was acoustically and sightlines. The Masonic Temple, a nice theater, and I could say it's kind of similar in ways to the Michigan Palace. They were kind of similar. You mentioned David Bowie real quick. That's another one of my dad's real common man stories. David Bowie called our house in Plymouth, and I answered the phone. I'm the kid. Hello. And he goes, this is David Bowie. Is Dr. Speer there? I'm going, yeah, hang on. Because there was no cell phones. There was no answering services. It was a house phone. And my dad gets on the phone. Hello. And David Bowie saying, Dr. Speer, you own the Michigan Palace. We're looking for a place to do a show. They couldn't get Olympia. They couldn't get, they were looking for the right kind of place. David Bowie was friends with Iggy, and Iggy had done shows there. In fact, Iggy recorded the live album at the Michigan Palace. Metallic KO was recorded live
Oh, yeah.
at the Michigan Theater.
Yeah.
And so David Bowie says, I'd like to play your theater. And my dad's kind of like, you ever heard of this David Bowie guy? He never heard of him. He had no idea who he was. And at the time, David Bowie was by far the biggest act that we'd ever talked to, at the Palace. By far the biggest. And my dad says to David, he says, well, my son seems to think you could sell out. And I said, Dad, I'm whispering, he could sell out the whole summer. I mean, and so now my dad's thinking Jamie Coe, that he could sell 5 nights a week. He says, well, my son says you could probably do more than one night. And David Bowie said, we were kind of thinking of maybe trying to do multiple nights. What if we did 4 nights? And my dad says, well, let's just do the whole week. And I told my dad, you're not booking Jamie Coe or the Sunday Funnies. You're talking to David Bowie. But David Bowie said, yes, let's do 7 nights in a row. All 7 nights sold out. It was one of the biggest events to ever happen at the Michigan Palace.
Has any of that shows ever been released?
I'm not sure on that.
You would think that he may have recorded a few of those nights.
I don't think official, maybe somehow undercover or something.
Yeah.
But
that was Mick Ronson era too.
It's probably in the Bowie archives somewhere.
It's got to be. That's incredible.
Interestingly, though, back then, early 70s, was kind of no cell phones, no little phones that you could hang on to. I don't even think you had video cameras yet then, so it was very hard to film anything. You'd have to have a regular production studio and the right lighting, and it was just really hard to record.
Yeah, you would have had to have a film crew,
right?
And I was thinking more along the lines of a live album, but if they had a camera crew,
yeah.
But what a era to come through. I mean, not only have you performed the legend of rock and roll as it is, but you get to be around it for Michigan's rock legends and everything in between, man. That is a great story.
All that and several thousand votes will get you in the Michigan Rock and Roll Legends Hall of Fame. I'd like to mention.
Well, you guys are there.
I'd like to mention we received the most votes of anybody the year we were nominated.
That's right, 2014.
Yeah, we got a lot of votes. And partially because we knew a lot of those people. You talk to David Bowie, you talk about Ricky Nelson, you talk about Chubby Checker.
Every era.
Yeah, we kind of knew a lot of those guys.
Damn. Thank you for your stories, man.
Well, I look at them and sometimes I'm puzzled myself. It's like it's hard to believe that I sat there with Ricky Nelson, or it's hard to believe that we were playing a concert with one of these oldies shows, and this is a fun one. We had been opening for Eddie Money. And I told Eddie Money, I said, hey, we're opening for the Ronettes tomorrow night. And he goes, oh, tell
Ronnie.
Yeah, tell Ronnie that I said this, and this. So next night I go up to her and say, hey, Eddie Money said he said this and this. And so she sits on my lap and she's my best friend. And she goes, Eddie Money, tell him this and this. Like all of a sudden, it's not just like somebody, who she doesn't know. Now I'm part of that circle because I know Eddie Money. So she's sitting on my lap. We're backstage at a big oldies show, probably 6 bands on this show. And Chubby Checker walks through and sees her on my lap. And he goes, oh, no, oh, hell no. And takes her and pulls her away. He says, you stay on that side of the room. And takes her and runs her off. I go, okay.
Then she ends up singing with him.
But Eddie Money, just like Ronnie said.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
She came and jammed with Question Mark in the 90s on their comeback tour too.
Yeah, they were
Coney Island.
They had a magical connection as well. There was something. Question Mark has that something we talked about, that intangible something, and Question Mark has that, and certain people just love Question Mark. I feel really bad that we didn't somehow incorporate Question Mark into the Michigan Palace. When they were looking for the New York Dolls, who could open up for the New York Dolls? A very tough band to find an opening for. Who would have been in Question Mark?
Right.
You think that now, though, but back then you're like, well,
right.
Everything's in real time.
Well, they kind of were off the radar at that point,
But he still would have done a great job.
Well, sure, obviously.
I'm in the midst of putting together his documentary on his history.
On Question Mark.
Yeah. And one of the stories he just told me recently was they were playing in '84 on the reunion tour. And they were in Chicago, and Tina Turner was on her big comeback private dancer tour. And, of course, she calls up them and says, save me a spot in a suite. When I'm done with my show, I'm coming down to see you. And he says, I got halfway into 96 Tears, and I know she was up there somewhere, but I never got to meet her. But she came down and saw us in Chicago. And
Yeah,
Tina Turner had to see question mark before she left town.
He's just got that magic something.
He's unreal.
Yeah, I put up a performance at the Arts Beats and Eats from 2001. When Question Mark still had it. I mean, he was all over the stage, really looking good.
I don't know the song. I just
Oh, I thought you were going to break
I
into
was just
96
playing a
Tears.
little a little of the beat. Yeah, it's funny. Question Mark, he says, I really like Benny's version of 96 Tears. And I don't do the song, but I know the chord. And I try to imitate the piano, right? Because
Well,
of
it's
the piano,
the
the organ. Yeah, the
organ.
organ. Da, 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 da. But Question Mark, when he heard it on the guitar, he said, you're doing a reggae version. And he says, of all the people that have remade 96 Tears, he says, I like that. And I never thought of that as a reggae version, but I guess you could kind of get a little bit of that strum in there.
Yeah, very much so.
I like Big Maybell's version.
Yeah. It's unbelievable how that went round and round.
Yeah.
Q likes that version too.
Well,
He
I
talks
like
about that one a lot.
Aretha's. I would put Aretha's version as number one.
Yeah, she likes that one. He mentions both
But
those.
Yes.
Doug Sam and the Texas Tornadoes really do a great version too.
Really?
Oh man, yeah. And that's they got Flaco Jimenez playing accordion on
okay.
that one. It's outstanding. Yeah,
So I have the Texas Tornadoes.
it's called Doug Sam and the Texas Tornadoes, or just the Texas Tornadoes. But Doug Sam is the main vocalist on it.
And all our friends that are listening to us right now on this podcast, Question Mark has a Facebook page called QUE Mark, M-A-R-K, Q Mark at Facebook.com. And somebody will go to his page and leave a message. Said they were talking about you on the Rock and Roll Legends.
Yeah. All right.
Question Mark,
Sounds good.
truly one of our legends and
Well,
heroes.
he certainly is, And as I said, it's 96 Tears, Bay City's official rock and roll song.
As it should be, yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Benny, thank you for coming and sharing.
So
the
awesome
history,
hearing your
man.
stories again. It was just great. Yeah.
I can't thank you enough for inviting me. And also for anybody listening that's anywhere near Bay City, you come here. First of all, you see City Hall next door.
Oh, man.
And that place looks
That's our spectacular
Yeah, that's quite a building
architectural achievement.
on its own. And you come in here to the Bay City Museum, and you see the Rock and Roll Legends room here. It's breathtaking. It's almost a must-see. I couldn't tell people any more emphatically to come here and take a look and tell your friends about it, because it's likes and shares and word of mouth that make all this happen.
Yeah, you got it.
And are you still on the road? One last thing.
Mostly, I'm just doing the solo things. I'll play in Frankenmuth as an acoustic guitar or something like that.
Right on.
If they call me, I'll go. If they're in Pasadena, California, I'll sit on the corner and do something. But as officially as far as bringing a big U-Haul truck with the big band, we don't do that. Not that we wouldn't or couldn't, but we really don't do that anymore. It's much easier to sit around and talk on the microphone, and you could still, that's a funny thing. I can go on Facebook, and I can do an event on Facebook with almost no preparation, no renting trucks, no setting up PAs, no 6 hours of this, no 12-hour drive to Ottawa, Canada. But I could talk to as many people through social media, could hear me play 96 Tears as could if I was actually playing somewhere. So the world has changed for bands and musicians and records and recordings. There's still people that, a niche group that want vinyl records. But really, if I'm talking to young guys younger than Greta Van Fleet, do I tell them to make a vinyl record, or do I tell them to go viral on a social media platform? The world has changed for music and for musicians.
Yeah,
And
sure
Bobby
has.
Balderrama and my son, they're both like 20-second TikToks is where it's at.
Oh, that's it. My daughter, I have a, not my
20-second
daughter.
TikTok.
20-second TikToks.
That's how you get famous now. My daughter, I said my daughter, my granddaughter, who lives in Arizona, is 19 years old, was walking down, she's a beautiful girl. She's walking down the street. Some guy in a microphone comes up and says, "Hey, would you go on a blind date?" And she goes, "Okay." And so they do a little 20-second TikTok where she goes on a blind date. She has 16 million views. So when you look at all of my videos, all of Bobby Balderrama's videos, all of Cub Coda's videos, we combined don't have the views that she got in a matter of days on TikTok.
His Bobby Valderrama's son is working with him to do clips, so they can and you can get paid well for them. And once you hit a certain mark, and my son's been telling me that for like 3 or 4 years now. Like, why aren't you doing clips? And I'm like, I don't know what TikTok even is, you know.
But it takes a long time for Google to pay. They still owe me $35 for the last 5 years, and won't send a check until it reaches $100.
Oh, wow.
Well, and interestingly,
well, you better get to work.
Well, I have one video on YouTube by Sugar Chow Robinson that pretty close to about 700,000.
But interesting, once you have 1 million, the next million's that much easier to get, and the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 10th million view is much easier than those first 10 views. So they kind of feed themselves. Once you get 1 million views, once you get 5 million views, it goes to more news feeds and goes around, and so it's self grows. Very interesting. Just like this podcast, the more people that tell their friends about this podcast or share it or let somebody know about it, join the energy, the excitement, all the crazy talk we talk about David Bowie and Cub Coda and the New York Dolls and Elvis Presley. You just don't get this just anywhere.
Well, that's right. Throw in question mark too.
Yeah, question mark.
Benny and the Jets, man.
There you go.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, all right, Benny. We got to get a photo here, guy.
On behalf of our hosts, we would like to thank the Michigan Rock Legends Hall of Fame, our guests, and especially our listeners. The MMHP is found on the 989 network, as well as all familiar podcast hubs. Up-to-the-minute information, as well as Dr. J and Sir Fred's Michigan Music Songs of the Week, can be found on the MMHP's Facebook page, /MMHP989. You can connect with Scott at scottbakermusic.com, Dr. J at michiganrockandrolllegends.com, Sir Fred at fredrife.com, and Mr. Mike on YouTube as MRBTEE1.
And on behalf of Dr. J, Sir Fred, Mr. Mike, and myself, Scott Baker, we would like to thank Eddie Switek for being the